Florida and the term tourist attraction pretty much synonymous. So it should come as no surprise that the nation's oldest city has the longest running tourist attraction in the state of Florida. But how did it all come to be? That's the question we're answering today here at the Fountain of Youth in St. Augustine. Just like the Holy Grail, stories have circulated for centuries about a mystical fountain that if you drank from it or bathed in it, the waters would turn back the hands of time and restore your youth. Some of the earliest stories about the Fountain of Youth predate the birth of Christ, when Alexander the Great was said to have come across a healing river of paradise. Similar legends have popped up over the centuries in Japan, Polynesia, the Canary Islands, even England. But nowhere on earth is the myth of the Fountain of Youth more linked than here in St. Augustine, the nation's oldest city. Spanish explorer Ponce de Leon set out from Puerto Rico in March 1513. On April 3rd, Ponce and his men are believed to have come ashore somewhere on Florida's east coast, possibly in the area of St. Augustine, but a precise location has never been determined. He claimed the land for Spain and named it La Florida, which means Feast of Flowers, the Easter celebration in Spain. You might have learned in history class that Ponce was looking for the Fountain of Youth. Books are filled with illustrations showing him doing just that. But in all the contracts and documents from that time is the Fountain of Youth ever mentioned as a quest by Ponce de Leon. Nor did it ever appear in any correspondence with King Ferdinand, who greenlit the trip. Instead, there were specific instructions for subjugating the Indians and divvying up any gold that was found. Locating a mystical source of water? Not listed on Ponce's checklist of things to do. When he attempted to establish a colony in southwest Florida 8 years later, the explorer made no mention of the fountain in any of his writings. The Calusa Indians attacked those who were trying to take their land in southwest Florida. During the skirmish, Ponce was struck by a poisonous arrow and died from his wounds a short time later. Probably the definitive evidence he never discovered the Fountain of Youth. So that's the non-story of Ponce de Leon and the Fountain of Youth. Now, let's tell the story of how this became a huge tourist attraction. Cue the crazy. Dating back to 1868, the Fountain of Youth property belonged to British gardener Henry H. Williams. He called his 225-acre estate and large Victorian home Paradise Grove. In 1874, Williams began allowing visitors onto the property to view the well and his beautiful gardens. This was the beginning of the property being thought of as a tourist destination. But it was one enterprising woman who took the place to a whole new level. This is a photograph of Luella Day. She was one of the first women to practice medicine in the country. In 1898, when she was in her late 20s, Luella came down with a severe case of wanderlust and relocated from Chicago to the Yukon Territory, where she joined the Klondike Gold Frenzy. Her plan? Attend the sick and make a fortune. When officials in Dawson City refused to accept her medical degree, she took a job as secretary to Ed McConnell, a boat operator and hotel owner. They fell in love and got hitched, but the honeymoon didn't last long. The couple apparently lost lots of money, and Luella began to see conspiracies everywhere. The Canadian government was trying to poison her. It was after her money. It was telling lies about her. She detailed it all in a self-published book, The Tragedy of the Klondike, which you can find online. By 1904, Luella had been forced out of the Yukon and relocated to St. Augustine, to a piece of property she had purchased a few years earlier with her husband. The couple had separated and later divorced. Luella acquired the nickname Diamond Lil. She was described as an attractive, slender woman with dark hair and eyes. At dinner parties, everyone always wanted to see her smile. Maybe it was because she had a diamond set in her front tooth. With no fortune and no husband, Diamond Lil is rumored to have hosted gambling parties in her home on Magnolia Street. Anything to make a quick buck. Which brings us to what is likely her most audacious claim. Lil told the local newspaper that a tree on her property had fallen down, revealing a stone cross 14 by 10 feet. That coquina cross, she said, was placed there by Ponce de Leon to mark the spot where he found a spring of fresh water. Then other artifacts started popping up on property, a salt container with an engraving of Christopher Columbus that she said Columbus had given to Ponce as a souvenir. She started charging visitors 10 cents to take a swig of the sulfur-tasting water and sold postcards featuring the well along with copies of the Columbus salt container. She began charging admission to the grounds. Inside the Fountain of Youth Spring House, visitors can still taste the world-famous water. Good stuff.
You feel any younger?
My gray hair's gone yet?
Not yet.
I guess not then. Just below a diorama of Ponce de Leon, visitors can still view the coquina cross, which current owners say was originally unearthed by Mr. Williams back in 1874. Others believe Luella had the cross built and even chopped down the tree where it was discovered. Also in this room, you'll find Luella de McConnell's Great Floridians plaque. Official literature from her induction says she continued to fabricate stories to amuse and appall the city's residents and tourists until her death in a car accident in 1927. The Fountain of Youth Archaeological Park we know and love today exists because of one man, Walter B. Frazier. He purchased the site in 1927 and over time expanded the park's offerings. In 1934, something happened that truly legitimized the park's ties to American history. Inside this building is a burial pit where dozens of human remains were discovered determined to be Timucuan, the Native American people who lived in northeast and north central Florida. Subsequent digs by the Smithsonian Institution concluded more than 4,000 burials likely happened on the property, and that the first Christian mission in the U.S. was here, on this site. For many years, the skeletons were exposed above ground for tour groups to see. But in 1991, the remains were reinterred during a solemn Catholic Mass. A more recent discovery connected some major dots for historians. A dig revealed Fountain of Youth property as the first settlement of St. Augustine. It was here that Pedro Menendez de Avilés first landed in the area and established North America's first colony, predating the founding of Jamestown by nearly 8 decades. What you see behind me is the original settlement of St. Augustine. Digs still happen here. Frazier added more educational exhibits with a planetarium and the Discovery Globe Theater, a breakthrough in innovation at the time. Both have changed little over the decades and are classic must-see attractions all by themselves. Living historians stationed throughout the park do an excellent job interpreting the past through a variety of demonstrations. You'll find a blacksmith on duty, a firearms presentation, and several times a day, a cannon is fired. A quick climb to the top of the watchtower provides stunning 360-degree views of Matanzas Bay and St. Augustine's Inlet. Back on the ground, you can take this 600-foot boardwalk for closer views of the river and a cool photo op with the city's tallest landmark. Now here on the Founders Riverwalk, it's an excellent spot to get views of the Great Cross at the mission next door. A Timucuan village has been recreated at the park, complete with a large family dwelling and this special meeting house. Experts have determined this property was home to the original 1587 mission of Nombre de Dios. Visitors can walk inside the reconstructed church that features a rustic altar and a palm thatch roof. Everywhere you turn in this park, you'll discover relics from the past and helpful signage that explains what everything is. While Mr. Frazier died in the 1970s, his legacy continues through family members who still run the Fountain of Youth Archaeological Park. Fraser took a roadside attraction based on a myth and fabricated stories and turned it into a world-class theme park with real history that continues to be revealed with each passing year. If you've never had the opportunity to experience the Fountain of Youth, or it's been a while, you owe it to yourself to check it out. You'll definitely learn something. Thank you so much for coming along and exploring the unique history of the Fountain of Youth here in St. Augustine. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy gallivanting.